Good morning, Kerbonauts. This is Scarecrow71 with yet another Kerbal Space Program 2 Early Access demo video. Today we're going to be bringing the Mun lander home that I put on the Mun yesterday. Before we get started, I have some information about something that I discovered while I was doing some testing this morning, and I will show you exactly what that is in just a second here. So what I wanted to do this morning was, before I did this video, I wanted to do some testing on EVA, because as you know from watching the videos, the hatch is obstructed. I can't EVA because it's disabled due to an obstacle. I have found out that on the Mark 1 tin can capsule, the hatch is not centered with the window. It is in fact offset. And this baguette is obstructing the hatch. So I highly recommend anybody who is playing this game to please test EVA capabilities before you launch. Parts can get a little weird in early access. Things can get a little strange, is the best way to put it. And we all want to make sure that, you know, when we get our Kerbals to the Mun or Minmus or Jewel, or once we start going interstellar, that we can actually get out of the capsule. You don't want to waste thousands of gameplay hours and find out Corming can't, you know, get out and plant a flag. So, word to the wise, test EVA capabilities on the launch pad. You want to make sure you can get out before you actually do anything. So, what we're going to do is we're going to bring Corming home today. We're going to get this little bespectacled Kerbal off the Mun and back to Kerbin. So first thing we have to do is we have to get up in orbit of the Mun. I'm going to shoot for an AP of roughly 30,000 meters. That's generally where I like to do all of my stuff from. You can see we've got 1,600 meters per second of delta V left, which is more than enough to get up into orbit and back to Kerbin. At least it was in Kerbal Space Program 1. Right? This is early access, so, you know, saying 1,600 is enough could very well not be true. But let's get Corming home. So let's just launch straight up and turn over a little bit. Oh, there we go. Trying to use the old controls. Hit the home key. There we go. Turn over a bit. Bring the landing gear in. And kill the engine. Now again, remember, pause this here. We cannot create maneuver nodes when we're paused, and we have to do this rapidly. And honestly, I do hope they fix this. I hope they give us the ability to create maneuver nodes while we're paused. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of players that run into a problem with being able to, you know, do maneuvers quickly. So we'll unpause. We will go just before AP. Create a maneuver plan. AP and PE is 26. AP is 80. Again, this is not the greatest. We'll turn this around a bit. 29 and 78. Yeah, whatever. I'm just, you know, simply not interested in messing around with it. It's circularization is kind of hard until we get some better controls and they fix some of the stuff with the maneuver nodes. We're just going to have to live with this. Sometimes I get lucky, like I did yesterday, with a, you know, nearly circular orbit around Kerbin. Sometimes we end up with this. It just is what it is. So we're going to time warp a little bit until we get to the maneuver node itself. And yeah, it takes about 400-ish delta V to orbit. Again, we've got 1,200, right? So this will be about 800 by the time we're done, which again is more than enough to get back to Kerbin. And we're getting ready to burn here. In 3, 2, 1, and fire the engines. And getting ready. 3, 2, 1, and we're done. There we go. We have successfully left the surface of the Mun. We actually have 900 delta V left to get back to Kerbin, which is good. We're going to need all the extra delta V we can get. I'm anticipating that we're going to have some problems. I hope we don't, but I anticipate that we do. Again, it's early access. I anticipate everything to be a problem at this point. So we'll delete the maneuver node, and we will zoom out. And we can see, here's Kerbin, there's Kerbal, or for those of us on Earth, the sun. So now what we want to do is we want to create a maneuver node to get an intercept, or to leave the Mun's sphere of influence and get back into Kerbin's sphere of influence. Now, I'll pause this for a moment. If you remember if you watched the video yesterday, or if you've seen any of the other screenshots or videos that people have put out on the forums or out on Discord, you will know that we can see the entry and exit points of sphere of influence, but we cannot see orbit paths in that sphere of influence until we are in it. So we are kind of flying a little blind when we're trying to do transfers. I mean, yesterday I was able to, you saw the path when I was still in Kerbin's sphere of influence, and you could see that I was trying to get a PE around the Mun of about 40,000 meters, and we got close to that. And that's a good visual tool to use. It's unfortunately the only one we have right now because we can't see those orbit paths, and we are asking the devs to absolutely please, make some changes. But we are kind of flying blind. So this may take a few shots to get it right. So we're going to save our game here, and I am going to call this pre-Mun return, right? And then I can hit save. Now, in the event that things go bad, I can revert and revert and revert until we get the right one. Now, I'm not going to revert, like if we end up with an AP or a PE of, like 5 million meters or whatever, I'm not going to revert there. I'm only going to revert, in case anybody's wondering, if we end up jettisoning into solar orbit, because that's not what I want. Okay, so we'll hit play again. So what we want to do is we need to create a maneuver node as we are flying around the Mun. We want to get somewhere on the backside. We know that we are traveling this direction, and I know that because I was paying attention when we were getting up into orbit, right? The arch was going this direction, so I know I'm headed this way. So I know that I want to set my maneuver node somewhere on the backside of the Mun, so that way when it expands, when the AP increases out towards Kerbin, I eventually leave the Mun sphere of influence heading towards Kerbin, and then hopefully get a decent intercept. So let's try creating a maneuver node right about, we'll say, here. And what we want to do is we want to spin this out. And there we go. We are going to end up with an intercept, and the PE at Kerbin is 9.9. We can do better than that. We can do much better than that, actually. So if we pull this, oh, no, too far. I can't see what I'm doing here. Okay, so there is the Kerbin intercept, and the PE is 9.9. again, we can do better than this. So what we're going to do is we'll pull this a little bit, and the PE is getting worse. Periapsis is not going to be nice. So let's see what happens if we spin this around a bit. Oh, see, now we've got PE of 11,000. And about 94, it seems to be about the best that we're going to get. I don't know if that is enough delta V to be able to get us home. And we can't aero brake. There are no atmospheric reentry effects. So we're just going to give this a shot. Start burning 26.5 minutes or so. You know what? We're going to play around with this just a little bit. What I want to do is I want to, well, that is going to increase. So if I know that increases, then this should decrease. Very little. So we can try pulling on. Yeah, we're getting a little closer. That's 7th. That's good. That's good enough. I mean, our AP is way out here at, not that I can see it. We'll leave it like this. 26 minutes until the maneuver node. We're just going to leave this as this PE. That's fine. If we need to, I don't want to use infinite propellant for this. We may have to, because I do want to get Corming back home. So, and again, we know that some of the maneuver node stuff is not optimized yet, which is why we have, you know, terrible periapsis, and we don't have MechJeb or the computer to tell us, oh, here's the best time to do it, the best, you know, launch window, right? So I'm guessing as much as the next person is, right? Thankfully, playing KSP1 all those years has prepared me for a less than optimal situation. So here we go. Let's just click on the maneuver node here under SAS control. We can watch our little craft. All right. And I think that some of these graphics are just amazing. Like, we never saw stuff like this in KSP1. Yeah, we'd see the sun and it would blot pretty much everything out. But you can see the halo around Kerbin, like where the atmosphere would be, right? You can see all the stars and potential nebula, and you can spin around, and, you know, there's the surface of the Mun, which is absolutely gorgeous, right? So, okay, so let's get ready to do our burn here. Let's time warp to the maneuver. And we've got about 30 seconds. It's going to take 360 meters per second at delta V, which is going to leave us with 544, which hopefully is enough to, you know, burn periapsis, or to get periapsis to where we need it to be. Again, we don't have to worry about reentry effects, so once we're out here in orbit, we can do some crazy maneuvers. In 3, 2, 1, and fire. And 3, 2, 1, and we should be stopping. Now, this is something that I noticed the last time we tried to do this. I did the exact burn, right? 544, right? And I'm about 5 meters per second beyond that. And this, I would have to continue burning for this to come up to where the original calculation was. We shouldn't ever see that. It shouldn't happen. There's something wrong with the calculations. And you can tell the devs I said that. It's not even close to being lined up. However, we are exiting the sphere of influence. We are going to get a periapsis of 8.1 kilometers, or 8,191 kilometers, right? 8.1 million meters it should be. So we'll delete the maneuver node. And yes, we are going to enter Kerbin's sphere of influence. We are going to have a PE. We are going to be able to potentially get back home. But the maneuver node is not calculating correctly. It's not burning properly. I don't know if it's taking into account the actual type of engine I have, if it's taking into account potential gravity of the body that I'm currently orbiting, if it's taking into account solar drift. I don't know if it's taking into account any of that stuff, right? But it's not calculating it properly. And the devs, I hope, know this and, should be able to fix it. Okay, so let's just time warp our lovely little craft. All right, now these little blue concentric circles are kind of hypnotic and a bit on the distracting side. I like being able to see where you are entering and exiting the sphere of influence. I don't know if this is the best way to do it. That's not for me to decide. I can only state that I'm not a big fan of the graphic. I'm a fan of that they're doing it. I'm not a fan of how they're doing it, right? The idea is solid. I don't think the execution is on point. Anyway, let's point ourselves retrograde. And 50x time warp, 100x time warp. I'm just trying to get into the sphere of influence here. And luckily, those blue concentric circles went away. Okay. So now what I want to do is we need to burn retrograde at AP to bring our PE all the way down so we can get back to Kerbin. So I am going to time warp all the way over there. And once we get back to retrograde, now see, this is the thing that really bothers me. I can't tell without looking down here what our PE is. So we're going to burn and bring this puppy down, 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 down. And I'm keeping an eye on my fuel. Stop there for a moment. Still at 277 meters per second at delta V. We're close. Come on, let's get down to about 30. Look at that. We can get home. Not bad. We still have 205 meters per second at delta V. Now, without atmospheric reentry effects, we can't aero brake, which means we can't decrease our AP. It's kind of a bummer that we can't do that, because that would really help save on fuel. I get why the devs turned it off at this point, right? They want to make sure that everything else is working, and then we can worry about blowing up in Eve's atmosphere or whatever at a later point. So I'm going to bring the PE down even further than this. Whoops! I accidentally hit the key, and now look at this. We're at 107,000 below. We're going to turn around. we're gonna burn prograde now. Happens all the time. That's one of the best things about this game. You make mistakes and you just laugh. Okay, so I want to bring this up to about 15,000 above sea level. Right about there. This should be enough so that when I'm when I'm entering the atmosphere and I get to a certain point, I can fire the engines, slow down enough, and then jettison the tanks and fire the parachute and hopefully be able to land and get Corming home. So let's time warp. First of all, let's point retrograde. And then we will time warp to that point. Go back to the map. Now, while we're waiting on this, right, we're still way up in the in space. You know, people have been talking about, you know, performance and everything that's going on, and you know, oh my goodness, we just can't do some of the stuff. I again have a RTX 2060 Super, right, and yeah, granted 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 parts, right, and I've got, you know, cycling somewhere between 30 and 50 frames per second, which is pretty damn good. Oh, sorry, pretty darn good. So I get that, you know, not everybody can afford to buy a supercomputer. I get that, you know, a lot of people were hoping for, you know, code to be optimized so it wouldn't be so bad right off the bat. But you really don't. I mean, my graphics card is just above the minimum, and I'm fine. Right now, I do have 32 gigabytes of RAM. I do have an AMD Ryzen R9 for a processor, so I do have a couple of, you know, things in my rig that allow me to have decent performance. But the graphics card, I'm barely above the minimum, and I'm doing just fine. So don't think you have to go out and spend $3,000-$4,000 on one of the top of the line graphics cards. They will get this optimized. Frames per second will come up for people who don't meet or who are barely above the minimum specs, right? It's just going to take some time. Please be patient. That's all I ask. Okay, enough about performance. Let's get closer to the ground, shall we? We'll go 50x. Look at that. Look at that image. You know what? I'm gonna take a shot of this. I'm gonna hit Alt Print Screen, and I'm gonna take a shot of this because that is lovely, in my opinion. Okay, let's keep going. Drop back down to 1x. We are still just above the atmosphere. And notice our AP isn't changing. Hang on, once we get into the atmosphere itself. Oh, maybe we can aero brake. Well, I'm not aero braking. It's gravity braking is what it is at this point, right? Kerbin's gravity is pulling me closer to its surface. So, got to pay attention to the altitude because I'm going to burn this 166 meters per second at delta V when we hit about 30,000 meters. And we're just floating above the surface. I apologize to anybody who had to hear that. I have a tendency to sing quite a bit, especially when I'm playing this game. So let's burn off that rest of that delta V. Your vehicle is out of fuel. Okay, so I'm going to pause this for a moment. The first video I did several days ago on drop day on the 24th, I had problems with decoupling. The upper stage didn't decouple. I had to do that manually. The parachute wouldn't fire. I had to do that manually. I cannot explain why that happened. I'm not the only one that's noticed this problem. It is a bug. Again, it's early access. We're going to see stuff. So I'm pausing it here because I am going to have to bring up the part manager and move this a little bit. Because I may have to do this manually, right? And the other day when I tried to land, I almost crashed because I'm cranking on the space bar and nothing happened. So that's why I'm pausing. All right, let's give this a shot. Let's do this, and then we will decouple, which is beautiful. Our surface speed is still far too great. I want to wait until this hits about 12 or 13,000 meters above the ground before I try to fire the parachute. Again, there's no atmospheric effects, right? So we're not going to burn up. I don't know if there's any physics effects from having the parachute deploy and we're moving too fast, right? I've seen it happen in KSP1. You deploy the parachute, you're going too fast, the parachute burns up, you crash into the ground. I don't know if that's going to happen here. That's why I'm waiting until we get to about 12 or 13,000 meters above the ground to make sure that our surface velocity is slow enough that that shouldn't happen. And we can go ahead and fire the parachute. And you'll notice I open up the deploy settings. It's all the same stuff as it was before, right? The minimum pressure 0.01, the deploy altitude of 1,000 meters. Generally, I change this to about 1,500 if this is the only chute I have, because I want to make sure that it deploys and I slow down and I don't go crashing into the ground. But these are all the same settings. Deploy mode is safe, right? Immediate. Risky in immediate, I don't think should have any effect right now because we don't have atmospheric effects, but you never know. Play with these at your own peril. So looks like we're gonna go right into the water. Parachute deploys 1,500 meters, and our surface velocity slows down to about 6 meters per second. That's right on. That's exactly where we want to be. I'm going to time warp a bit here because the descent is far too slow for my liking. Well, it's slow enough that we're not going to blow up on impact, but it's too slow in that we would be sitting here for several minutes waiting for this to happen. And once we reach somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50 meters above the ground, I'll drop this back down to 1x. And we just coast gently until we splash down. Now that looked like it was a little bit of a splash before, and we still got more splashing. We got splashing both before and after we hit the water. There we go. Everybody can see the bug here, right? It's an interesting little thing that's happening. So, but Corming is home. We have successfully sent Corming from the KSC to the surface of the Mun and got, I don't know if that's a him or a her, home. Now, look at this, because we know the hatch is no longer obstructed. Remember, I said that this was on me. I found out that the hatch was in fact obstructed. We can actually go EVA with Corming. Look at that. Corming is outside of the capsule. Now granted, it's on the surface of Kerbin, but outside the capsule. So we'll just go back into the capsule because Corming does not need to continue to take this bath. And now we can recover the vessel. Right? And go into the... We can close this because the vessel's recovered again. Here's all your stats. Anywhere you want to, anything you want to talk about with this, right? Anything you want to see. It launched, it entered the moon's SOI, it entered Kerbin's SOI. Right, so we'll just close this, and it keeps us here. So we'll just go to the KSC, and it is nighttime at the KSC right now, as you can see. And that brings us to a close of the EA demo that I've done with the MUN. This is, again, part 2. The first part will be uploaded today. The second part I'm hoping to get uploaded today, but we'll see what happens. I will make these available publicly, both on YouTube and post links to them on the Kerbal Space Program forum. And I may put them out on Discord. We'll see if I do that or not, but definitely on the forums. If anybody has any questions, by all means, tag me in a post, hit me up on Discord, send me an instant message on the forums. By all means, I am more than willing to sit down and talk about my experience, your experience, right? What do you think that I did wrong? What do I think that you did right? Can we learn from each other? Can we all help each other make this game the best it can be? That's kind of the point of this, right? That's why I'm doing the demo videos. That's why I'm, putting myself out there to say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is what I'm capable of, right? Because we all just want to enjoy this game, and that's pretty much all we want. So again, I'm Scarecrow71. Anybody who's watched, anybody who's been paying attention, I thank you for doing so. Until next time, everybody have a great day and fly safe.